Hello lovely people, welcome to what's gonna probably be the last video in the DIS-TANZEN series. And for this final one, I'm here with my good friend Benedikt, who you might have already seen in some of the previous videos. He is not only amazing in figuring out how to get perfect synchronization done on your system for free, but actually he's coming from a professional background in rhetoric and communication and is a coach in that area, as well as having experience from dancing and together with his partner also working with online dance classes and so on. So there's a lot we can learn here from Benedikt when it comes to how to take our communication online. So Benedikt, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Ali. It's a great pleasure to be here in this amazing series.
I'm gonna start with the first question, and that is one of the things we see when now with everybody's going online is that, of course, the competition is something completely new. You're no longer just competing with other schools necessarily in your neighborhood, but now you're in a digital front, and then it's just a whole nother world. But that has maybe been the case for coaching and communication world, the rhetoric and communication world, for quite a while. How is the experience for you? How have you managed to deal with that competition?
Yeah, so in the online world, when it comes to rhetoric teaching, it's the case that since a couple of years already, there has been like a big flood of people that are teaching online. And now the swing dancing and dancing world is experiencing the same thing. So it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you are now like competing with all the other experts. Like looking at dance, if you want to take a lesson with, let's say, with Ryan Francois, you can actually do that. And you can actually like just go there and learn it from that person that you want to dance like directly. And that is some new competition that has come up. It used to be the case that if you were like the best dancer in your region, then you were basically the only person that people could actually come to and have their practices with you directly, or otherwise they would have to travel vast distances to meet and learn from the people that they would want to go to. It leads to a shift in how I taught and in how the people are generally approaching their teaching. So it does not work anymore, and for me it basically never worked, to try to teach like somebody else. So that was never possible in this already online dominated coaching world. It means that I always had to find my exact, my own way. So for example, in the communications world, basically many people want to learn how can I manipulate people. And from the get-go, I started by saying, I will not teach that. So you will never ever learn manipulation tactics from me. I know and I learned how to reach the goals that people want to reach without any manipulative tactics, just with, with straight methods. And that is one thing that has started to set me apart from many, many other communications teachers. So what that means for the dancing world is that trying to be and teach like somebody else, I think, has become less good for you in general, because people that are taking your online classes are there just because of you. And I think that's an amazing, reassuring thing to know they could all be taking online classes from somebody else, but they intentionally chose to be there for you. And that makes it so that you as a dance teacher can basically fully go into being you Like, you don't have to be try to be more like this teacher or try to be more like that teacher. And if you think you want to dive, for example, let's put it like this. In the rhetoric world, there's one teacher who is famous for being the harshest rhetoric teacher ever. So in those seminars, expect to get yelled at. And he is making, he has a huge following because that's his profile, right? I am the hardest rhetoric teacher. I'm not saying that that's a good way of teaching, and maybe in the dance world that would not be a great thing. But if you are someone who likes to really dive into the technicalities of every move and to whatever, measure all the distances to the millimeter, or measure the tension between different partners or whatever, then you can do that, and you will find the people that actually love this detailed approach. Or if you're someone who's like, I am just a happy-go-lucky person and I'm like full on making jokes and having fun all the time, and maybe the dancing is like a side part, but in fact like my whole teaching is a great show, then you can also do that, and the people that love that way of teaching are gonna come to you. So in a sense, this competition makes it so that you actually gain more liberty to be like fully you, because people actually have a choice. They have a choice to go to you and want your style, and if they don't like your style, they will go to a different teacher. But if you try to be like everything for everybody, then you're basically gonna drown in this whole sea of competition. And that's been the case for the communication world for many, many teachers. And I think those who have found their spot and be like, okay, this is me and this is how I'm gonna do it, they are swimming on top.
I love the sentence, competition liberates you to be who you really are. Like that's a fantastic perspective. I always appreciated competition. I think it brings out the best of us. It brings out, I always saw it as a way of making sure we don't get lazy. We really we do the work we need to do to represent our ideas and thoughts and knowledge well. But the fact that it also liberates you to know that if you want to stand out in the competition, you need to just be more as true to yourself as possible, because that's gonna get through much more, is a very nice perspective. I actually recently had a conversation, several years ago, I had a conversation about something similar with my team, where one of them was pointing out how, for example, most gym goers wouldn't go to the gym who has necessarily the biggest, buffest individuals there, but rather they go to the gym where they feel most comfortable with and feel it fits their personalities best, so to say. And yeah, it sort of fits very well with what you're saying about be yourself, and competition will maybe be less of an issue, or at least the ones who are there will enjoy you to the fullest. Is that about right?
Exactly. It's about that the people who are there for you, and they made a clear choice not to be at a different online class that is maybe offering almost the exact same thing, but in a different way. And they are there for your way of doing things. And if they wanted it differently, they would go somewhere else. But they want it just the way that you are doing it. And I think that can give you a great confidence in just going full on being yourself.
Yeah. And yeah, it resonates a lot with my own experience, where sometimes we do have students who come and say, hey, I would like you to teach this a little bit differently because I prefer it this way. And you have to sort of figure out how much of that you want to accept based on, do you want to, or maybe I should turn this around into a question. How do you balance that within your coaching when somebody says, I really need this approach in order to be efficient? And from your perspective, well, you have your style and you have your also knowledge, so you know whether it's going to be useful and so on. How do you balance between how much you give in to the requests made on you to versus staying true to your style and your belief on what's good for your clients?
So I always teach what I think is best for the client. And if the client insists on learning, for example, a manipulative tactic, then I will tell them to go somewhere else, because they're not going to get that method. But the thing is, always the question, what does the client want to reach? Because usually people don't want, like, their goal is not manipulating people. The goal is like reaching they have different goals, right? The manipulation is just a means of getting there. So I ask them, like, what's your real goal? And I offer them how I can help them reach that goal with the methods that I provide. And if they're like, okay, cool, let's try this, then they're happy to be here, and it's great for me to work with them. But if they're like, no, I want it to learn it in a different way, then I'm like, okay, so then I'm not the person for you. And that makes it so that in my classes, if I'm not teaching just one person, if I have more people in this class, I know that all the people that are there are actually aligned, and that they are basically moving towards the same goals, and they have similar expectations. You know, if you look at dance schools, for example, let's pick a place that I know really well, like Munich. Munich has 3 main dance schools, and one is in the north, one is in the middle, and one is in more the east, south.
You're talking about swing dance schools.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the video is going to be for more than just swing dancers, but just for clarity of the people in the audience who's watching this video, both of us are mainly focused on Lindy Hop and swing, and therefore this tendency of seeing that seeing the world from that lens. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you have like 3 different dance schools in different areas, people mainly choose their dance school that they want to go to by locality, right? So they're like, okay, I live in the north, so I go to the dance school that teaches that dance in the north. Only after a while, and usually they stick with the dance school that they started with. Sometimes people change, but that's relatively rare. So that makes you, as a dance teacher or a school owner, you have to basically cater to all the different opinions and to different people that come there, because in the area there's all kinds of different people there. In online classes you can do it very differently, because you have a much larger pool of people that you can choose from, and you can, by saying this is the way that I teach, you can make sure that the people in class are moving towards the same goals, and they have the same like work ethic, they have the same ideas of approaching the dance, and so all of that is more, well, it can be more supporting to each other, because everyone is likes that style, and everyone's like moving in the same direction, and you don't have to cater to that many different expectations so much. You could even think of having like different classes in that sense. So you have like maybe one class that is really for the deep technical drivers, for those who want to be like really into the nitty-gritty of everything. and have them have a separate Zoom meeting. So those who are more there for just let's have fun in the community meeting and everything, so that they can have their great time, and you can, you know, separate the audience a little, so it is the people get more of what they would love to have.
It's funny that maybe I'm gonna digress a little bit from the topic, but one of the challenges that we're facing is as an experienced dancer, I put a lot of value on the feel of the dance and the history from the perspective of, for example, it's a very Eurocentric approach to want to break down a dance like swing, for example, and that is an African American dance, very into very specific physical measurements, while the community has really been waking up to recognizing that we should maybe try to get away from it a little bit to get more closer to the roots and how it was learned when it was created. And it's really a hard step for example, we are both situated in Germany, and it's a very hard step for our students to appreciate. And we have a joke within our students where one of them were even saying like, I won't take a single step before I've read 3 books around it. And we're having a little bit of this problem a little bit. Although it's not fully on topic, maybe I just take a chance and checking, how would you approach such a situation where it's not about saying, you know, it's not such an black and white of saying, well, I won't do any manipulative thing, and it's you want to maintain those students because, well, from all other perspectives you're aligned, but you want to steer them away from desiring what they think is the way they need for learning, but into what we think culturally would be the more appropriate or the more authentic way of learning the dance. What comes up to your mind about approaches to sort of present those ideas and get them on board with you?
You're throwing me a hard question. I love that.
I'm taking a chance there.
Yeah. Looking into my communications background, there have been lots of trends in this way or the other way. Usually people come to me, well, for me it's relatively simple. They come to me with a problem and they want it solved. And they sometimes have a path in mind that they want to take. But in my case, usually they don't have a clear path, and they're hoping that I will deliver not only the information, but also the path on how to get there. So for dancing, that could be in the same idea. So if you take away like the pathway thinking and be like, okay, let's figure out what our goal is. Like, what do we want to achieve? And if the goal is clear, then and you can promise the goal, then the path becomes rather irrelevant. Let's put it like this. So you can actually say, okay, we're gonna reach this goal, but we're gonna do it in a different way today. I can try to explain that with an example. For example, in my world, for the teachings, when someone wants to appear more confident, right? So they're thinking about like body language, and they want to learn how to position themselves, and they want to learn about posture and about hand movements. They want to learn how to move their hands, be like, I got small things, bigger things, and larger things, and then it becomes very technical, everything. So what I tell them is, I'm going to make you more confident, I'm going to make you look more confident, but we're going to do it in a very different way than you expect. So we're going to do it in a way that I want you to have a direct speech in your speech. For example, that's like one way of doing things. And when they start speaking as a different person, so like if you tell me, "Hey Benny, what are you doing today?" Then I just talked in direct speech. I just talked in your voice. So, and by doing that, they become a different person. They have a different body language, and they reached a different level of acting on stage and of behaving on stage without, technically learning, I need to do this movement and then I need to position myself in that way. And then I usually show people a video of the result that they are having. And people also feel how it is. So through the feedback that I'm giving them afterwards, they see, I reached the goal that I had by doing something that I had never expected to learn, but the goal is reached. So I guess the method worked. And I guess that might be a thing that you can implement in dance teaching. Be less focused on the path that people want to take, but be like, okay, I'm gonna promise you this goal, and I'm gonna make sure that you reach the goal, and and by doing that, you can prove, that's the word that I'm looking for, you can prove that they're gonna reach it.
I like that. If I paraphrase what I understood is, when you're getting to that situation, try to take the conversation away from the step-by-steps that you want to get them through first. Talk about the vision and the goal and where you want to guide them, and especially if they are inspired by that goal and want to join you there. What you do is to ask them to join an experimentation round of trying to do it. So like, let's take a moment, let's try to do it this way, and not only let them experience it, but even maybe consider recording it in order for them to both have the emotional feeling to go through it, but also having an external proof, as you said, in order to see how it actually looks like. Because especially in dancing, we know, that also, I'm guessing what you're saying is rhetoric. We're not aware of how we come across. We're not aware of our body language, our tone, and so on. So if you also give them the recording, you get both the visual and they have the emotional, and maybe that's the leverage we need in order to convert, in order to help them be convinced about the approach you're proposing.
Yes, the feedback helps a lot. The feedback in like visual feedback where they can see themselves, but also like the feedback that I as a professional am giving, and the feedback that is coming from other participants as well. So when participants are like, wow, that was really good. I don't know what you changed, but it sounded great, and you looked so much more confident. That is all people need, and people are often like, okay, so this seems to be working, so let's continue this path. So it's more about, for me, trying to get this proof in somehow, and that works really well.
Yeah, I really like that. Thanks for that approach. It makes me think of one of the distinctions that is very common within the communication and rhetoric world is the fact that we are much more aware of what a coach is and what a teacher is, and they use different methodologies and they have different strengths and so on. And I'm not sure, as dance, when we're having a dance class, I'm not sure if we have the same clarity both as those concepts, but also how to use that online. Could you maybe talk a little bit about those distinctions?
Yeah. So in the rhetoric world, there is a clear distinction between a teacher and a coach. In the common language, it's usually used similarly, but for us teachers or coaches, it's a very clear distinction. So a teacher is basically, and I consider myself to be more of a teacher, is basically someone who gets presented a problem and delivers the information needed to that and helps people, reach that goal by applying the methods and the information that they deliver. A coach is more like a helper who is there and who doesn't give their own input, but more helps the person they're coaching come up with their own solutions by asking the right questions. Right? So a coach basically in this world doesn't really deliver like solutions, but more helps people come up with their own solutions. So that's the difference in here. So for dancing, it's mostly we are teachers and coaches sometimes in the same area, and we are having all these different roles in our classes. So for the online world, what I started doing is I started really separating the parts that in which I am having contact with my students, and I'm using different methods for every stage that I'm in. So in my case, we have like a teaching part where I deliver information. So I deliver like how to structure a speech for a certain event. So I have this structure there, but I don't have to do this in person because doing that, like the structure is going to be the same for everybody that I teach. And I can do it via a sheet, via paper. I can do it with a video that people can watch. I can have people read a book or watch some YouTube videos, and I can have them, take in all the information without me being present there and delivering it for them in the same way that I have been delivering it like 1,000 times before. So that information delivery part, I can outsource that from my actual coaching or teaching session. And then in the end, I always have the practice part. And the practice part is also something where I don't necessarily always have to be present. Like if someone wants or should hold their speech, for example, like 20 times, I don't have to watch them struggle through the speech 20 times. I'd rather see the first one and see the last one and see how their journey was. And then I can say some things on the last version so they can start their practicing process again. So in between these two parts, there is the part where the participants really need me. It's the part where they need to understand certain concepts, where they have their own questions, where they have their own ideas, where they are trying to figure out how to apply the information that they just got to what they want to deliver and what they want to talk about. So this is the stage where they really need me to be there in person, and that's the part that's also that I consider my most important job. And my most important job is not delivering information. My most important job is not watching people practice. My most important job is to make sure that people can apply the information to their own doing. And all the other parts can be outsourced and people can do that on their own. So looking at dance teaching, you could think about people could watch a video that you provided before your dance class. So you don't have to show the move to the people for the first time when you are there in person. They could have watched it before you are there. And then they will come to your session already with questions in mind. They maybe have tried it already by themselves. and they come to your session with the questions in mind, you can answer them. And that's where you as a dance teacher like really shine, because that's, you know, you've been through this process yourself, and you can help them get from this theoretical information to the phase where they can practice. And the practice time also, you don't have to watch them do the swing out like 10 times or 20 times trying to figure out the different ins and outs, but you can be there for maybe the last version. You can watch that and you can see, okay, now I need to give them this exact information so they can move on or move over certain obstacles that they're having. So in teaching, we can start to move a little bit away from the idea that we have to be the information deliverer as well. So we can be more of that transitional helper. So we can so we can try to be more of a coach and less of a, you know, theoretical input teacher, but more of a helper of trying to get the theory into the praxis.
Maybe it's a terminology thing. So let me try to paraphrase and what I have understood so far. And because the last thing you were saying about being more of a coach, it sort of shook what I thought I understood about what you were saying before. So let me try the paraphrasing and then see if I got it right. First of all, you were saying there's a difference between a teacher and a coach, right? A teacher comes often with experience and knowledge about the content matter, and one of the major things they do is to help the client, let's say, being able to implement that knowledge into their into whatever they are doing, so it becomes part of them, right? Whereas a coach doesn't necessarily have content knowledge. You might have a coach for sports, but you are way ahead of your coach in terms of your ability in that sport, but the coach does something else. They are able to draw out your thoughts and filter away the clutter and help you concentrate, help you motivate, and whatever you need to get yourself to the outcome you want. So those were the fundamental differences between teaching and coaching as I have understood, both from you, and maybe I threw in some of my own understanding in there. I'm not sure anymore. But what I took from what you were saying with the online medium is, because we have now an opportunity to pre-record some of the knowledge transfer, that doesn't have to necessarily be part of the teacher's role anymore when we are doing on online dance class, for example, but can be done ahead of time. And instead, what we do there is, this is the point, I wouldn't maybe necessarily say coaching, but because it's still about them taking your knowledge and moving it into implementation. But
you're very right.
So yeah, okay, so we're on the same page there. But it is still that process of working together with the student in order to figure out what was missing or what was not understood, and how in their body and in their mind and in their knowledge, how can they best implement what you are doing. So it's sort of somewhere in between, right? It's not the coaching because it's still your knowledge, but it's not pure knowledge transfer anymore because you have already done that.
Yeah. What's also interesting about this part is, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be your knowledge that you are helping people to implement into their bodies. Like, if you could take knowledge from somebody else. For example, you take old clips, or you take clips from a musical, or from whatever internet. You take some YouTube clips and you have that knowledge be the knowledge from somebody else, or moves that are maybe long past or that are your idols. And you take these clips and you're like, okay, now we're gonna start this teaching session not by me explaining the move, but we started with informed people that already know the move, that have already seen the move, that already have their own thoughts about the move, that might have already tried the move. And now you're coming together, and maybe together you're trying to figure out, how can we make this move happen, and how can we make it maybe look exactly like what we saw in that movie. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your own knowledge that is the base for a class. It could also be the knowledge from somebody else. In my case, people are often coming to me with some pre-knowledge from other courses, for example, and they're just trying to figure out, how do I use this information that I already know to this new case? And so I help them how to take that information and get it across into their bodies. And that's
very specific information, right? Yeah, it's just that quality of having a specific information that you would transfer. Now, on top of it, there's also another challenge that comes with all of this, is the fact that the attention span is different online versus offline. How are you dealing with that when in the rhetoric and communication, coaching online, and what do you think about that in dancing?
Yeah, the attention span, as we know from Facebook, is 1.7 seconds. So 1.7 seconds is the distinction that Facebook makes if somebody actually watched a video or just scrolled across it. So we know that in the courses, people are a lot more distracted by basically everything, by, like kids running through the screen, or phone calls at the same time, or just stuff happening around them. And so that distracts from the actual teaching content. So basically what I learned is everything just takes longer. For somehow, we've just been talking about, you can outsource different parts. Yes, but the actual session itself usually takes way longer in an online context because people are, less focused. A couple of things that I do in these classes is, one thing is I regularly mention the benefits that whatever I'm teaching right now is having on their behavior or what goals they're reaching. If I am, for example, teaching how to give feedback to students, so I continuously implement, so if you're doing it this way, then you will get, then people will be happy even if you criticize them. And I do that at least every 5 minutes. I have to reiterate what the goals and what they will reach by this method. Yeah. And yes, exactly. I keep the why up, so people, yes, right, that's what I was about to, learn, and that's the goal that I wanted to reach. So having this goal continuously updated, so people don't forget that was the reason they're coming to the session, that really helps. Also, I need to talk way more about the whole structure of the class. And that's something that you can also do in dance teachings. So I have to often say, okay, so we just did this part, and now we're moving on to the next part. So now we had the beginning of a speech, and now we're moving to the second part of the speech, which is going to be how to deal with the fears of the people. And so I have to continuously talk about, and that takes time, I have to talk about where we are in our class. Theoretically, if you have a professional on the side, you could do that via a digital, whatever, a time bar or something like that, which would be amazing. But that would need like a different person who does that on the side, or you need like more hands than I have. But making sure that people who are distracted have an easy pathway back into the class is really important. So that if somebody just got an email, for example, and is like, oh, I need to quickly answer that, or whatever, just quickly had to go because the oven was still hot or whatever, they will be shortly distracted, and it's very nice for them to know where you stand. So that's what I do. I implement these phases, which are redundant, where I say, okay, so we did this now, and now we're going to move on to the next part, and we are here now, and we're going to move there. So these parts really help the students to quickly come back when they have like a moment of absence, or maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be that they are absent in a sense that they are their attention is somewhere else, but maybe they were thinking about what you just said and were trying to implement that into some other thoughts that they had. So they're like really into what you just said, but they're not following the course.
Maybe as a final point, are there best practices that are pretty common in the communication and rhetoric world that maybe we could borrow for the dance world as well?
Yeah, sure. So in the rhetoric and communications world, what has been or has become pretty common is that you are separating the roles of the teacher and the, let's call it, operator. So if you're talking about online discussion forums or even online teaching sessions like the sessions that I do not have the brain capacity to at the same time steer all the communication tools and all the screen sharings and everything, and at the same time be fully into what my students need. And especially if you're a dance teacher, you want to be dancing as well. So it's going to be hard for you to, go somewhere and type some things, and that's going to often break, the whole setting. So for many communication teachings, it has become standard to have two people present. And then in this case, not two people dancing or not two people teaching, but actually one person that is solely responsible for the chat, for dealing with the audience, for technical things, like implementing a status bar or just helping people where to find things, or just a separate operator. So the teaching can, stay cohesive. You have been talking in the other sessions about how do we get this magic across. And I think one of the big hindrances of magic is once the technical surroundings become apparent. And whenever you can remove the appearance of this technical surrounding, that is a good thing, and that will help the magic. So for us communication teachers, it has become very normal to have a different person, that's something like a moderator, who actually does the
chat, maybe
takes care of the chat, for example, or helps people find some files that you've provided, or takes care of all these other things that you want to do, like light, and if someone lost their connection, or helps mute some certain participants. Everybody knows that, like somebody has still get their microphone on and it's giving feedback all around. And so just to have one person that takes care of all this can really, really help make your dance lesson way more fluid and we have taught our kids to do some of that, and that's amazing. They have like a real job that they can do there, and so that gives us a great experience there, doing these sessions together, and they've become quite good at that. So yeah, that's one of the main thing that we've that are the best practices. And there is one more thing that I would love to talk about in the sense of teaching together. So if you are in a physical class, it's a little different, but when you are talking about online teaching, all the participants are like really focused on the two of you. And if you have like one person, there people are really focused on the teacher. But what happens is that the second that the other teacher does anything, the attention will immediately shift towards the second teacher. And one of the most common things that let's call it second teacher, that the one that is not explaining something right now, the second that person is looking into the camera, they have all the attention of all the participants, and it really takes away from the role of the person that is just explaining something. So it basically, looking into the camera like really sucks away all the attention from the person that the attention should be on. And that goes with, like, little twitches or people want to hide something. The best advice I can give for teachers who are teaching together is that the one who is just listening or just standing there right now, the best thing they can do is really actively listen to what the other teacher is saying or doing. So don't try to flirt with the camera or look to the people or see what they are doing.
Guilty in our videos.
Yeah. So try to just look, because the attention, the eye contact of the second teacher will steer the eye contact of the people that are around. So if the second teacher gives the full attention to the teacher that is there in the first, that is like in the spotlight right now, that will massively help keep the attention on that person.
That's such a great point you're making, and I think, for example, because we recorded a lot of online videos, and it's so difficult to just sit in silence and or stand there in silence and give your partner some chance. I think it's a lot of uncomfortable energy that comes out that translates into flirting and distraction and stuff like that. And if we can control that, we actually create a much better space for our partner to deliver a message to the students. Yeah, that's a brilliant point. I feel that one hit me very well because I tend to have a lot of those moments in our videos. And I thought I was being charming, but no, it's probably distracting.
Yeah, it's stealing. Little attention thief.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, I have that tendency. And I think that's a great point, great moment to wrap this conversation with me being an attention stealer. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experience and knowledge with all of us. I think there was some really, really nice points that was made. Definitely the one that stands out for me still is competition allows you to be more of who you are, basically, and that's the way to go about it. Benedikt, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ali. Bye.